Marti Elizabeth Ewing is a yoga therapist and 500-hour experienced registered yoga teacher with Yoga Alliance. It means she can teach other people how to be teachers. She's that advanced. And she has over 15 years of experience helping people recover from injuries, chronic pain, illnesses, and mental stress. She works in clinical settings such as the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, where Marti coordinated and taught yoga programs as part of the Whole Health Initiative, a holistic approach to healthcare that empowers individuals to take charge of their own health. So let's find out how we can take care of more of our own health. And by the way, Marti Ewing is also a healthy aging specialist. So this is going to be really exciting. Marti, welcome. I'm just kind of curious. I got to ask a question. How are you healthily aging?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to share some of my secrets that aren't so secret, really. They're for everyone to seek, but with some of the world. And, I just try to, for my healthy aging, ask myself the question daily, what do I need today? And, obviously some days I may have to put it on hold, not for too long, but at least I've checked in and I create this awareness of what I need. And I ask myself, how's my mind? How's my body? How's my soul? Which might sound like a strange question. How's your soul? But, do I need to be in nature more, right? Do I need to be with my higher power more? So these are daily questions that I ask myself. That seems to really put me on the right path at the beginning of the day, no matter what's happening.
Wow, that is so helpful for us. Now, how did you get in the habit? Because one of the things I notice, and some of my listeners, we get all pumped up, we hear the tips, and then we kind of fizzle out. How can we become consistent in what you're saying?
Well, consistency is key. It really is. I jokingly call it the C word. I mean, it's what so many people have trouble with is consistency. So, I think you have to be gentle and tender with yourself, which is a great theme as we age. Anyway, right? Aging is hard enough. So speak lovingly and tender, but, show up for yourself. And on the days when you don't do such a great job, maybe for circumstances out of your control, don't let the exercise that you're doing to be healthier and de-stress stress you out, right? Just get right back on whatever program you're on or whatever, even if it's a short walk, and just make it happen. So many times we get caught in the why I can't do it or excuses for why it hasn't happened sooner. And, just being in the moment like that with your health is a great way to age healthy, gracefully. And I mean, I think I define healthy as happy. So, yeah.
Interesting. What made you come to that conclusion? I mean, that's a great idea. Healthy meaning happy.
Well, I know that there is a saying that I like, and I tried to look one day and see who said it, and there's a lot of people that take credit for it, including Anthony Robbins. But I really think it's a very old Buddhist saying. I think it's Buddhist, and it is that suffering is inevitable and pain is optional. So that's how I guess I came to this conclusion that regardless of what is going on around me, and I've had plenty of adversity in my life, really from a young age, which is what brought me here, to find the joy in the moment, because that's really the only place the joy exists, right? So to find the joy in the moment. And of course, humor is a big part of my culture and my background. We were rewarded heavily in my family for being funny. So I think like laughter has just, I was born that way. Yes.
I love that. Well, you're kind of in an interesting niche because here you are, you're extremely advanced in yoga, been practicing, setting up these studies in different study settings, initiatives. What drew you to that part of helping others with the trauma and the chronic pain? And because that, especially at this point in our lives, could definitely come in the picture.
Well, goodness, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, in this world that are in chronic pain. But fortunately, because of a lot of research done at the VA from both yogis and people that hold higher positions, PhDs and such, professional researchers, I guess you could say, we have really discovered a lot about chronic pain and the pain loop. So I was really proud to be part of that national group. And it is an initiative, which is just means it's a fancy way, government way of saying that, it's a new department. And we had to do something for our veterans that other than give them medication. Opiate addiction in the world and in the VA is very high. And so they started looking at some more mindful practices. So yeah, that's kind of how that started.
So in your own practice, I know that you help people, everybody in these areas. And what drew you more to that rather than the typical
Right.
hatha yoga or something like that? I'm
Right.
just curious because it is a different niche.
So I was starting to say, I have done a lot of things. I'm a very creative person, and when you tend to be artistic, you tend to find different things to do to allow you to be artistic. And one of the things I did for about 5 or 6 years was medical sales, and I learned so much. And it's funny, it was a fine job. It was just fine. It paid well. It took care of all my needs. But I was never really that proud of what I did, even though I was very successful in that field monetarily. I sold a pain device and pain medication. So I was calling on pain clinics. And I'm going to just make it very short, but I saw, this was before we had officially said we have an opiate addiction epidemic in this country. I firsthand witnessed what was happening. People were getting hurt or injured. Maybe it was workers' comp. Maybe it was not something else. Anyway, the doctors are very well trained in giving medication, which when you want medication, you need to have somebody that understands that. I'm not knocking that. But they were prescribing things, sometimes selling them device, or really I shouldn't say selling them, but providing them with devices. The insurance was charged, of course, but that's to be expected. But anyway, these things, the point is that these things that they were giving them were Band-Aids. People were not actually getting better. They were treating the symptoms, and both of those devices and medication, after a while, patients would build up a resistance to them. So it really wasn't working. And the medication would oftentimes make people, as we know, opiates, loopy. And so that didn't help them. They weren't able to function in life more, so it was a problem, and I felt frustrated. And then coincidentally, I happened to find my teacher. That's another interesting story. I won't dive into it at this moment, but I found my teacher. She was a very specific kind of yoga teacher. She developed a program of recuperative yoga. I'll just say her name, Dr. Julie Bird. She does not practice anymore, but she's in Houston. I wish she did. Anyway, and it's a combination of chiropractic, yoga, physical therapy, and relaxation practices. Now, since then, that was over a decade ago, I've had other influential teachers, but that was my base. She insisted, I became very interested in her practices because they did work for chronic pain. And I witnessed that myself, starting to feel some pain in my body at that time in my life, and finding that just a few simple things that she had instructed me to do over the course of several months lifted my pain. And from there, I just continued to learn and feel better and pass it along and see more and more incredible stories of this yoga relieving people of their chronic pain, whether it's back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. We all have these things, arthritis in your body.
Wow. So what is your own self-care routine? I think some of it might be asking yourself the questions that you started out with.
Oh, yeah.
Is there
definitely?
Because you help so many other people with their routines.
It's so important to have your own, isn't it? And I guess that's really what we're talking about here. Thank goodness we're all so much more aware of self-care these days. Thank goodness we have podcasters like you talking about this kind of thing, because I truly believe when we feel better, we're happier. This is very simplistic, which is why I like it. When we feel better, we're happier. When we're happier, we treat others better. And that just perpetuates, right? So this could almost be like our key to, and this you might think, wow, that's lofty, but our key to world peace, right, is to just bring people to happiness and giving people permission to self-care. So, I remember some basic principles. I talk to myself like I'm my own best friend. Yes, I talk to myself, sometimes out loud. I make sure I get exercise as much as possible. So oftentimes, because I teach in gyms, I have a sort of a easy way to create some self-care around my work. I go early sometimes so I can hit the gym. I do a lot of aromatherapy baths, and I just pay attention. I pay attention to what my body needs and what it's to make sure I get in yoga several times a week. And, it doesn't have to be a whole big deal where I'm going to yoga for an hour. I love I like 90-minute practices. But, if I only have 10 minutes a day to do some stretching, lengthen my muscles, bring a little range of motion back, as long as I'm checking in with myself, sometimes the conscious decision might be, because, I caretake an older relative, might be, today's not your day, Marti. I know you don't feel good. That's hardly ever the right decision of it. Today's not your day, but let's make a date tomorrow, and so I'll make a date with myself for my self-care.
Wow. It reminds me of actually when I got divorced about 11 and a half, 12 years ago, I put a picture of myself on when I was 6 years old on my refrigerator. And I said, I'm never going to leave you again.
Oh, yes.
Anybody, has that ever occurred to you, or do you have any reminders from the past that keep you on track in your
Well,
journey?
inner child work is pretty incredible. And I did some of that work last year, and it really did change my life. So I do have mantras, and my whole entire house are things that I feel bring me joy and power. I have my every area is sacred. I have like a little reading area, and my house is small, but I have a cooking area where I prepare my food in certain ways, and just everything as I move through my life and move through my house. I don't have anything in particular that comes to mind right now that I have from when I was a child to remind me of who I am. That's kind of what I think you're saying. But certainly when I was a child and my father got very sick, and that was actually 6 years old, funny you would say that age, that was actually a pivotal point in my life when I realized that there was sickness around me, but also I had the power to make them laugh. I was always entertaining. So, yeah, it's so nice to have reminders of your childhood around you. But I'm just now starting to sort of embrace that inner child and work with her.
Yeah, that's a journey, because when you were talking about it, it sounds like it's kind of been threads have been there your whole life, and you've kind of put it together, and it's things that come together with you. It's what I'm hearing.
Well, I try to help my students also understand, and the people I work with, my patients, students, whatever they happen to be, so that there's another Buddhist expression that I sort of live by. Buddhism has a large part in my life, although I was born Jewish, and I'm Jewish too. I consider myself Jewish too, but Buddhism is my guiding philosophy. And but it's funny because there are so many parallels. You can find things also that may speak to you in both practices, in many practices. It's all, the source is the same. But I'm digressing. But I like the one turning poison into medicine. So when it's kind of like lemons into lemonade, I suppose. But poison into medicine. When something happens to us, this is our lesson. And my experience has actually, I think, equipped me better to have a deeper level, a deeper capacity for compassion. And so many of us just need to have that for ourselves and others. And that's also part of the healing process. So it's not just all the therapeutic, chiropractic things, it's also body and soul. Yeah.
Do you notice women 50 and over have a greater need or lesser need, or do you notice anything at all as opposed to maybe people younger?
Well, certainly a different need, I think that from a so you're off. That's kind of a hard question to answer because is it are you talking about a physical need? Or are you talking about a emotional need? And really in yoga, we don't separate them. So I think that older people, women over 50 have, and I don't know if that's older. I always say older is older than anyone in the room.
Oh, I love
So
that. That is
women over
beautiful.
50. Yeah,
That's
right?
great. That is
Right?
really
Women
great.
over 50. Yeah, there's a lot of little gems in my classes like that. It's just the way you look at things, right? The way you frame things, the story, you know this from coaching, the stories you tell yourself. But I think definitely older people have different needs because their bodies are different. Here's another one I say a lot. We've spent more time on earth. So instead of saying this usually happens as we age, I say this usually happens as we spend more time walking upon the earth, right? So it's just how you look at it. And, older people get depressed, younger people get depressed. But I will say that teaching over 50 I find it really super fun because they're less inhibited. They'll ask questions. They're open to having fun. And so it just makes everything. I welcome people that that need to work on that are too inhibited. I welcome that. But it is very fun and funny working with a group of over 50 women. I don't even consider 50s older, but yeah.
Oh, neither do I. But one of the things you were saying,
Yeah,
how I like that is the longer you happen to be on Earth, I call it
yeah,
evolving too, rather than aging. I mean, a 3-year-old ages. So rather, how are
yeah,
we evolving?
yeah.
And I like what you said about how we're doing it and how the people are
Right.
less inhibited because we could maybe come to a point where we just are what we are and we accept it. I don't know.
We are more accepting, but there's a lot to accept as we age. And sometimes people have trouble. Sometimes people have trouble with that. They remember, we all do it because we're human, but we remember how things used to be and we're holding ourselves to those standards. And so a lot of times when people come to me and want to rehab something physically in their body, they really don't, they're not always aware that they're going to first be working on their emotional state, their outlook, and they're hurting themselves by holding themselves at things that aren't going to happen anymore. So letting go, detachment. You see, yoga has all of that. And that's why I love it for healthy aging. It has the philosophy of detachment, which let's face it, as we age, we're really ultimately detaching from everything, from our lives. I mean, you might find that rather morbid, but I find that realistic. And it also helps me to live in the moment more when I think about that. When I know that I'm not going to be here forever, then my time right here with you, Jody, is the most important time that I have right now. Yeah.
Same here.
So,
Ditto.
yeah, yeah. So, and then yoga talks about, so letting go and then acceptance without judgment. So, as we look at our faces and they change, learning to accept that, these are big lessons. We can get very depressed if we don't have maybe the tools to work with that, right? And letting the ego go, that's a very big part of yoga, becoming egoless. So, and these are all things that assist greatly. Sometimes they happen to us naturally. Some people are already more prepared for aging, and other times people need help. We want to hold on to things that we really need to let go so we can evolve. Like you said, if we're holding old values and old standards, we're not going to grow past that. So it's beautiful and it's profound. And when people come to me for a yoga lesson, sometimes they just get a lesson or they come on Thursday nights and they leave or they Zoom with me and that's it. Other times I watch them just evolve. Thursday night, I had a man here. I just have to say real quick, he had a stroke and he is not particularly super healthy and he's had a lot of trouble moving. He used to be a yoga teacher. He must be in his 70s. He's not real old, but I mean, he's mid 70s, older gentleman. And we had a smaller room the other night. I was kind of like, I need more people, but it gave me time to really pay attention to each and every person. And he wasn't able to balance very much. A lot of the cues weren't really, the neural pathways weren't really firing. And Thursday night, he'd been coming here about 6 months. And some nights he'd just shake his head, and it wouldn't even have been a hard practice by my definition. But he's like, I couldn't do a lot of that. Well, Thursday night, he was just moving like a teenager. It was amazing. He had breakthroughs, I mean, there were some things he couldn't do, but he was moving very well. And when I see things like that, patience, that's the other thing you develop. Because we both, him and I, had to work together for 6 months till we saw some breakthrough. But, it's beautiful when you see that. And it changes people's lives.
So you're talking about, because this is interesting, I think that this is a really interesting point you brought up, that yoga that you do, it's not just, okay, putting yourself in the motion, but then in the position, but then how does it come out that, oh, gee whiz, I need to let go of this? I mean, more of a deeper message. I mean, how does it come out in your work with people?
So the word yoga means union of mind and body. So ancient yogis, some people say yoga is about 6,000 years old. So I guess they knew a thing or two 6,000 years ago.
Amazing.
And there's a book, a very famous book among yoga teachers that specialize in trauma, which is one of my specialties. And it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And the research was done at the VA. And it talks about yoga as a modality for releasing PTSD, severe anxiety. And because it allows you to learn, the other aspect that I didn't touch on that yoga provides is self-regulation. But instead of going into the trauma, like some trauma treatments, they take you into it, you relive it, and you reframe it. In this case, you release it. But it only releases through the muscle memory, but also through the breathing and also through the philosophy. So, but you only release it a little bit at a time or as you're ready. The body releases slowly, as we said earlier, with consistency. And really, for a lot of people, we're not all the same. So people are different. But for a majority of people that I have seen, they begin to let go of the trauma and think about it a different way. We're essentially, here's another thing. It just goes on. That's why I say it's profound. But we're essentially rewiring the brain because you're building neural pathways, Yeah. So it's very, very profound. Not all yoga and not all teachers are for all students. You got to find what clicks, right? But when it does, this is the potential that it has.
So when you work with somebody, you don't say, okay, you need to detach, or, this is the thing that's coming up for me. More than what you do is that you focus maybe on the pose and what they can do. Is that what you're saying, that what you do with people?
Yeah, totally focusing on what they can do. And even it's so very foundational. That's another way to describe it. But even like, for example, posture. Do you know that studies show that when we're in better posture, depressed people, when they stand in better posture, is what I'm trying to say, that their depression is lower. These are clinical studies you can look up. Just being in good posture. So if just being in good posture can do that, can you imagine what moving with ease in your body can do for you?
Yeah. This is.
As I'm talking to you, I'm leaning forward, and because I'm engaged, right? My body language. But now I'm like, okay, well, now I need to back up and roll my shoulders down. So, we're constantly, this yoga builds an awareness that allows us to innately, with consistency, readjust as well. We build our awareness. And it seeps into your everyday life.
And I understand that balance comes from that we're not totally like balanced. Balance is, you might shift here, you might shift there. And what I'm hearing is that maybe you need to shift in the postures in order to get that balance even in your life. When you go through this and you say, well, I got to shift.
That's very astute of you. Yeah, that's very astute of you. I use that. I use that analogy a lot, that like, let's shift our weight, find our even distribution of weight, or like you have to lose your balance to find your balance. I talk about things like that. There is a yoga psychology. So part of being a yoga therapist is that you understand this yoga psychology and you're able to, if you're good, and experience helps because you can put patterns together. but you have to be aware of what the student needs at any given time. So when some people will respond well to being talked to more at the beginning. Others want to move, need to move. They have a lot to let go before they're going to get there, or they want to build trust with you first. So, I am a yoga teacher from anatomy. That's my basis. And so that's always my go-to because I know, I'm not in people's minds. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I do have a thorough and good understanding of yoga and how people's body mechanics work. So I'm less likely to make the wrong assumption on that one. And then that gives me some time to see how they're moving and observe them before if it's appropriate, go in any further. I mean, we have to maintain our boundaries, and I'm a yoga teacher, right? So I'm not diagnosing, not doing talk therapy, but I might be teaching yoga philosophy through conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it kind of comes in the back doors, I call it. That people might make their own realizations on their own, but yet you may not directly come out and say it, but yet you kind of help them discover that. Well, this is so fascinating. There's so many more questions I can ask you. I know our time is kind of going quickly.
This is not the kind of work that you can tell. People discover, and you guide them to the discovery.
Wow. Well, would you share more about what you offer our listeners? Because I'm sure our evolving listeners would be very interested.
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to talk about yoga. So you can always get in touch with me if you have any questions. My website, I'm assuming things like that will help. Marti Ewing, MartiEwing, yoga.com. My phone number is on there. You can call me. That's not a texting number, but you can leave me a message or you can reach out on email. I have in San Antonio, Texas, face-to-face classes on Thursday nights, but I also do virtual chair yoga, which I'm trying to really get the word out. It's hugely beneficial for people that are less mobile. And then I also have a beautiful Sacred Sunday, we call it. A lot of people from different places in the world join me. It's at my time, 7 p.m. On Sunday nights. You can call me and get more information. I also do private and group lessons if that's something to be arranged with the client. Like if you want to have your family do yoga with me, either virtually or in person. And I also do some nutrition counseling on aging. I have a healthy living certificate from Cornell. And so we put together diet plans for my clients. Yeah.
One-stop shopping.
So that's what I do.
Fabulous.
I try. And, people, you find someone, you trust someone, they ask me a lot of questions. I just try to know things without going beyond my professional boundaries. Yes.
Oh gosh, what a light you bring to other people. Because I know I took your classes, if you remember, a good couple of years ago when you lived in Houston, and it really helped me a lot with my lower back.
Awesome.
And thank you.
I'm so glad.
So am I. I mean, you were a big help. You really were.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being on Life Maven podcast, because there's so many other things that you touched upon, but time's on our side right now. I just feel like it just kind of zoomed by with you. And thank you so much for coming.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. I appreciate it. We need to see good examples as we age and motivators and think of things in different ways. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Marti.